What about morning routines? We hear a lot about morning routines. Do you believe in morning routines? Do you have one? Like, did you have one as an agent? Like, what do you say about that?
Yeah, as an agent, I did. My whole thing, and if you guys have followed me for any amount of time on social media or YouTube, I'm all about freedom. And freedom to me is not having a very strict routine, even though we're talking about following your schedule right now. For me, like you didn't really like prospecting. I didn't really like prospecting, but it was a means to an end. It was a necessary evil. And that's how I feel about like strict routines. I'm just more of a free spirit. So when I was like in my grind phase, I'll refer to it as my grind phase. Like, hey, I need to just get, 4 transactions a month happening type of mindset from zero. I had a very strict morning routine and a very strict calendar. To today in my life, now that I'm financially independent, it's not so much strict, and I really enjoy that. And now also now that I'm a dad of two little kids, like I remember thinking like, man, why don't all these agents have a strict morning routine? And now that I have kids, I realize like, okay, I see why having a strong morning routine might be tough if you have kids, although it's still possible. So yeah, man, when I was early on in my real estate career, there's this really, really cool workout group. You might have heard of it since we were both from Charlotte, called F3. It was this morning workout group, Faith Family Fitness, and it was at 5:30 outdoors, just men before they went to work, working out outside, rain, snow, whatever, didn't matter. And that was awesome for me. So I'd get up at 4:50. I would eat a banana, and I would be on like a field at a school or neighborhood by 5:30 to work out for an hour, and that was awesome. I'd go home, I would shower, typically read or listen to something while I was getting ready to just get my mindset right. And then on my way to the office, I would either be listening to something to help my mindset again, or I'd be role playing my scripts. Ideally, I got to the office by 7:45 to role play my scripts, but if I was running behind for whatever reason, I would role play my scripts in the car on the way there. And by 8 a.m., I was hitting go on my dialer to start calling the new expireds. So it was workout, it was mindset, and it was getting usually like a healthy shake or breakfast in before the office. So it's crucial, man. It's when you're operating at that level and you need that discipline in your life to achieve those types of goals. I think it's essential.
I'd leave my house. I lived way down on the peninsula, so I had a little bit of a drive. I'd go to the Y. I'd listen to a ritual podcast on my way to the Y. I'd listen to a podcast while I was working out. I'd end my workout with a run, which I felt like really increased my energy going through like the rest of the day. I'd hit up the juice bar. I'd make it to my office by 8, and that was my routine. And I always felt like whenever that didn't happen for whatever reason, my day wasn't as good or wasn't as productive. And it might have just been a mental block, but I feel like those morning routines are really critical. And the second part of that word routine, like actually having a routine that pre-frames you for success. So I don't think it's as important what it is. I just think it's that you have something that consistently gets you into movement. Movement's critical
Yeah.
before you sit down at your desk and before you start making calls to get your energy up, to get your oxygen flowing, and then get right into it, man. And it's awesome. Last thing on this topic before we move on to the next one. What about calendar types? There's all types of calendars out there. There's different planners. There's just sheets of paper. There's electronic versions. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I always liked paper calendars. I got away from it for a little while in the last couple of years just because I'm not so scheduled anymore. However, I was like, you know what, I could use a little more discipline in my life to get to that next financial level. So I brought the paper calendar back. I got one from Amazon. It was like $6. And every 15 minutes from like 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. is you have a line, so you can really time block effectively every 15 minutes. And I love that style. It's 8.5 by 11. I still have my Google Calendar just because so many things happen where people send a calendar invite that you accept and things like that now. And it's nice to have recurring things like this show is a recurring thing on my calendar. But I just find when I can actually write, put pen to paper on my calendar and plan out my week. Like I was actually just doing this yesterday morning. I went back to because I just bought this like a month ago, so I got January through like April just blank. So I went back to April and I was actually just sketching out like what I want my ideal week to look like now. So I'm putting back a little more structure to my weeks, but uh, But yeah, I think it's, it doesn't have to be paper. I think for most people, though, it should be paper. I think they'd just be more effective with it. And especially when you're prospecting and you got your calendar book open right there on your desk and you know what appointment times you have available and you see right there your different time blocks, what you got to do. And it's just always right in front of you. And it's a tangible thing that you're carrying with you. Um, so that's what I prefer.
I think that most people, their knee jerk response to this is like, oh, electronic, there's so much good technology out there. But I too found it to be more effective to have a written daily, weekly view planner.
Yeah.
And that's how I would block out my time and my colors. And I would have my red time there, which was like my showing time. And I would have those blocks pre-framed in there to make sure that like, personal stuff didn't like creep in and start robbing me of that time. And then what I could do is when I was prospecting, I could just have those open spots look and I could be like, one of the things, you might close out a prospecting call with what's a good time for you, Thursday at 5 or Friday at noon. And you
Yeah.
could just go to those blocks right there and fill them in and have that at your fingertips. So that's what worked best for me. I'm always one that's a proponent of, success through things you've actually done, not through theory. And for me, that just worked better. I had my CRM, so I had like my electronic version of tasks and things like that. But it's generally like, what am I going to do and how am I going to flow through this week? Always worked best for me on paper.
Yep. Yep. I'm with you there.
The second top trait that I want to highlight, and you'll see that these kind of go in a sequential order, if you will. Number one, follow your daily schedule. But number two is lead generation daily. So, when it comes to lead generation, a critical aspect of any realtor's business plan. What do you say to that, AJ? What's that look like and mean to you?
Yeah, it's crucial. If you don't lead generate daily as consistent as possible, you're probably going to fail as an agent. And we know I think it's like 90% of all new agents fail in the first 3 years. And it's not because real estate's so hard. It's really not. It's because they don't have good habits and really good habits around income producing activities, with lead generation being the most or the highest paid income producing activity that you can do as a real estate agent. So I think it's essential, and we live and die by that mindset. I remember my first real estate coach, and now I kind of cringe at the mindset because it gives me a little bit of anxiety to like think about living that way for 30 years, or that there are agents still living by this philosophy 20 years into their career. But it was start every day at zero. I think that mindset serves you for a time, but I think there's also got to be a time where you're like, man, I put in the work and now I have the freedom to not start every day at zero. Like, I am thankful today that if I never worked again, I could still live my current lifestyle forever. Like, that is a good feeling. Like, I start at 100% every day. So if you're newer or you're trying to get your sales to a new level, that's a great mindset to have. So if you're starting every day at zero, you're embracing that lifestyle like I did for a few years. It's If you don't lead generate that day, you haven't really done anything to move the needle in your business, to move the ball forward. So when you start every day at zero, you're going to lead generate for 2 to 4 hours, because you literally have zero clients when you have that mindset. Sure, you might have 10 listings, might have 4 under contract, 3 more buyers under contract. So you got deals in the pipeline. But when you're like, it's zero, I'm at zero today, unless I get a new listing appointment, a new buyer appointment. It's a great mindset to have when your back's against the wall. But man, 30 years in, that's for me not the way I would choose to live. However, there's some top real estate coaches that still preach that day in, day out. But I'm like, let's get you to the thrive phase. Let's get you to financial independence, so you don't have to be on that hamster wheel